the afternoons are tough. Oh man, they're so tough. They fill you with food, and then they put you in this cold room, and it's kind of dark. Oh man, I get it. And I fully acknowledge that it's us between you and a snack or a beverage or whatever. So I promise that we will be done in 26 minutes and 40 seconds. So thanks for the opportunity to be here, by the way. Thank you, Sri. Let's give a hand to the Rocketlane group. Could you imagine flying over here in India, putting this whole thing together, and then they're going to roll right into a virtual one for the next 2 days? I mean, it's unbelievable what these guys have done. So thank you for the opportunity to be a part of Propel once again.
Thanks, Aaron. Awesome. So this session is, I think, something which was originally inspired by a conversation I had with while going through the session with Brian about how he stayed relevant as a leader over a period of time. And one thing he didn't mention, which we sort of caught on to and said, hey, this is valuable, we should do this as a separate session, was that one of the things Brian did at Informatica to stay in that role year after year was to actually form like a charter for what his team needs to do, socialize that charter with leadership, get all of their buy-in on here's what we are going to set out to do this year, so that you have that alignment internally with all of the CXO leadership on what your team is there to do, what they need to accomplish, what resources they need, all of that. So that sort of inspired us to think about doing this session. And yeah, excited to go through this quickly.
And you guys are excited too, I can tell, right? Everybody's excited? Everybody's excited. Yeah, let's go. Rock on. I love it. We're like a few hours away from like cocktails and networking and stuff. It's going to be great.
Sorry. So yeah, what do your goals look like in 2024? I think there is a poll over here if you want to scan this and participate.
While we're doing that, who has a charter for your PS organization? A few of you do. Okay, awesome. So when we get further down, I mean, this is such a small group. We want this to be kind of a casual conversation. I'd love to hear from any of you who have done this. I did it way back in the day when I was a implementation consultant running a team on on-premise software. Not to like fully age myself, but let's see how we're doing on the. We getting there?
Yeah, time to value seems to have a lot of people. Obviously, being SaaS, I think that's been an important thing. We heard a lot of formalized and standardized things. Margins, only 5%. Interesting. I would have thought more. Yeah, but yeah, this is something we've been seeing. We did a similar sort of exercise in January this year, brought together a bunch of PS leaders and did a survey. And these were the topics that actually emerged. That's why we put up those same topics over here. And yeah, time to value, standardization, and margins actually dominated in that survey.
I'd love to see adopt AI way at the bottom, right? Nobody wants to adopt AI. I mean, there's a chance we might all end up working for the machines, right? Like we all, right? There's a slight chance, right? I'm kidding, of course. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so are you all on track with your goals for the year? If time to value was the goal. Who are all on track? Raise your hands. Okay, there's a few. Got it. And if you know your goals and you're on the way to accomplishing those goals, why do you still need a charter? Why do you still need a vision for your team? The idea really is, we try to put together what our goals are and what a vision should be. And me being a product guy, I thought, hey, who do I look to for getting inspired to form any vision? It would typically be Steve Jobs. So looked up what sort of drives decision making at Apple, came across a video that was inspiring. Thought I'll play that out first for you. Ouch. Okay, we have a.
You guys can read lips, right? Everybody good at reading lips?
Are we able to play this out?
How many of you been to a
Yes.
Propel before? Oh, here we go.
Mr. Jobs, you're a bright and influential man.
Here it comes.
It's sad and clear that on several counts you've discussed, you don't know what you're talking about. I would like, for example, for you to express in clear terms how, say, Java, in any of its incarnations, addresses the ideas embodied in OpenDoc. And when you're finished with that, perhaps you could tell us what you personally have been doing for the last 7 years.
You know, you can please some of the people some of the time, but one of the hardest things when you're trying to affect change is that people like this gentleman are right in some areas. I'm sure that there are some things OpenDoc does, probably even more that I'm not familiar with, that nothing else out there does. And I'm sure that you can make some demos, maybe a small commercial app that demonstrates those things. The hardest thing is, how does that fit in to a cohesive, larger vision that's going to allow you to sell $8 billion, $10 billion of product a year? And one of the things I've always found is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room. And I've got the scar tissue to prove it. And I know that it's the case. And as we have tried to come up with a strategy and a vision for Apple, it started with what incredible benefits can we give to the customer? Where can we take the customer? Not starting with, let's sit down with the engineers and figure out what awesome technology we have, and then how are we going to market that? And I think that's the right path to take.
So, popular video clip, I'm sure a lot of you have watched it before as well. But the idea here was, when we started thinking about what are the goals that we want to set for our implementation team, PS team at Rocketlane, my thought was, hey, it's not just about, products having to start, their vision and their sort of thoughts from what should customer experience be. But even for the PS team, for our implementation team, for any services team, maybe you need to start from the customer. That was sort of the intention I started looking at this with. And I said, hey, if that's how we're going to start, then what should our vision be for the team? What sort of goals should we set? Time to value makes complete sense, keeps the customer experience in mind. And from a vision perspective, I tried a couple of things, right? I said, okay, maybe one way to define a vision for a PS team could be craft and deliver services experiences that consistently drive valuable outcomes for our customers. So that started from the customer. And then tried one more iteration. I said, okay, maybe it's about more specific outcomes. So maybe the vision for the PS team should be craft and deliver services experience that help our customers do two specific things, given who we are as Rocketlane. We want to help them shrink their project timelines, and we want to help them build successful partnerships with their customers, as we saw this morning as well, right? Like, be a partner was an important part of having a successful journey with the customer. So, but I didn't feel, yes, start from the customer is one way to go about defining the vision and maybe, goals, but maybe there's more to it. And started brainstorming and started working with Aaron on how do we sort of flesh this out, what should we look at, and understood that it's not just about vision and goals, but you need to have organizational alignment around what this team is going to do. You need to have that charter that you agree upon, that your team knows and has access to, that your leadership has sort of aligned with as well. And I'm going to, have Aaron chat more about how we can go about like a step-by-step process to build this charter. And I'll also chime in on how we are doing it at Rocketlane.
Yeah, so we've got some examples for you. And here I thought Sri just wanted me to sit up here and look pretty, but apparently I have to do some talking too. And this thing is just going crazy down here. I don't know if we can get this to match what's back there so we don't have to keep craning our necks around. But let's go ahead and move to the next slide, Sri. There we go. So there are 10 steps in order to put this charter together that we've identified. And like I said, we're going to go through and actually see, thank you for fixing that. We're going to go through and see some examples from Rocketlane. And the first is to actually start with your organizational purpose. I don't know if anybody's ever founded a company, but when I did, the first time, well, every time, but the first thing I do is sit down with my co-founders and say, we're going to start with the why. Why are we doing what we're about to try to do? Anybody seen Simon Sinek? Familiar? Yeah? Start with the why. If you haven't, that's another great TED Talk. Not that that was a TED Talk, but you can find it on YouTube. And it's all about that starting with the why and really kind of backing out to everything we do from that point. And I think Sri's got some real-world Rocketlane examples down here. Is it correct?
Yeah, so my thought was, as Aaron sort of fleshed out what are those 10 steps, I've tried to add like what does that step mean for Rocketlane, so that you can see how we derived our charter. So, start from the organizational purpose. This is what our stated mission, vision is for Rocketlane, to say, hey, we want to help PS teams, onboarding teams, elevate their client delivery experience for both the internal team as well as for their customers.
And so you can see there we've got looking at customers basically internally and externally. So at my core, I'm a customer success guy. That's sort of the world I live in. And you can define customer success as desired outcomes plus desired experiences. And that's why I always love speaking at these Propels. I've spoken at every one that they've done, both virtually, and I was delighted to finally get in person the opportunity to do so. Because onboarding, as stated this morning by Nick, is unequivocally, without a doubt, the most critical stage of the customer's life cycle. And we can look at those customers both externally, that's kind of where our minds always go, but we can also look at them internally. We've got these internal teams that we can also view through that same lens. They've got a desired outcome that they're looking to achieve, and they got a way they want to achieve it. That's the desired experience piece of it. And so I loved that he called this out, really showing that this isn't just an outwardly focused thing, but this is something we can actually use in terms of our charter internally as well. Okay, so that takes us to number 2. Align with your values and your brand. You can see the values there. I'll let Sri speak to these because this is certainly his, this, like I said, this is real world stuff from him. But everything we do needs to come back to these values and brands. So we start with the why and then in that charter, and then we move out into, all right, what are we looking at from a mission, vision, values perspective? So Sri, do you want to walk us through kind of how you came up with these?
Yeah, so I've just listed out what we look at as our values at Rocketlane, and also the verbs that sort of describe, the adjectives that describe who we stand for as a brand. We want to be seen as modern, thoughtful, fast, professional, world-class, etc. So we sort of put these together so that as we think about our vision and charter for every team in the organization, we are keeping in mind who we want to be, who we want to come across as to our customers as well, not just who we are internally. So internally the values, but also externally facing the brand. So that's something we want to stay true to, and so align around how.
I thought the respectful was a nice one to see on there. I don't think enough businesses necessarily keep that in mind. So, okay, moving on. So then that takes us to actually defining what the objectives are, the outcomes, if you will. And so this is the goals that Sri has from his professional services organization, and he can walk us through those. But again, if you look at it through that definition of what is success, An outcome is an objective. It's something you're looking to achieve, and then it's a matter of tacking on how do you want to go about achieving that. And so Sri's come up with some really good ones here that I think will resonate with all of you. Of course, we've seen reduced time to value all day long, so I'm not surprised to see that one on there. But anything to add on those?
Yeah, I think we looked at where we were last year and we said, we want to get to a much more standardized, faster launch with our customers. So that's going to be a key objective for us this year. And the key thing to note is this is an exercise you want to do every year, right? It's not like a one and done to build a charter for the team. It may be easier to do it iteratively, but what your objectives are this year depends on your stage. And for us today, it's, hey, we do want to standardize a lot more. We want to reduce our time to value, and we want to figure out how to build trust faster, earlier in that customer journey.
Love that. I love this one. Okay, so when I was looking through these slides, I was like, I wonder if I can get the room to do this. I know the customer success conferences, I go to all of them. I know the customer experience conferences, I go to all of them. I haven't had a chance to get in front of professional services and onboarding specialists, and I want to kind of test your fun level here. Will you guys all, that's called dabbing, right? Or what is that? Is that what it's dabbing? Yeah, are we ready? Are we going to do it? All right, you guys going to do it with me? We're going to go here, and 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 we're going to go here. Oh, and you guys crushed it. That's all I had to add to this whole thing. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause. I love it. But seriously, though, what this is all about, whoops, I think we jumped one, was now validate what you've come up with internally, right? Get buy-in internally, and obviously look at these teammates here having such a good time. But anything to add to that in terms of employees, customers, partners?
Yeah, I think.
Or do you just want to keep doing that?
When you get your objectives down, it's good for you to then ensure that everyone in the org, your team buys into it as well, right? It's not just top-down, something that you're going to push to them. Great ideas come from everywhere, so ensure that your partners, your customers, and your team members also align with you on, hey, you picked the right objectives for this stage of your journey.
Perfect. All right, 4 down, 6 to go. I can do math. All right, so next, the market. Play to your strengths, so lean into your strengths. Sri's going to walk us through this, but this is kind of like a Gartner sort of grid that you've seen. But the whole idea is to really take this and leverage it as to understanding what you do better than everyone else. What is your differentiator?
Right, and I think each of us have a different sort of what's our strength in the market, right? As a product, someone may say, hey, I'm the most flexible platform, but it's sort of harder to configure, harder to sort of, you can customize everything about my platform, but it's going to be harder to stand up. In which case, what services looks at as their objective, as their sort of, charter, what they want to accomplish could be very different from, let's say, at Rocketlane, one of the things we want to be is a tool that is easy to set up, easy to adopt, etc. So our services needs to reflect that. Our objectives around services needs to reflect that because that's what someone sees from outside. That's what they're buying into. So we'd better deliver on that so that it remains your strength and it helps you establish that as your USP.
Keeping in mind, this is for your PS organization we're talking about, right? Not your entire company. All right, number 6, craft your vision statement. So you can see Sri's there. I'm going to let him speak to that. But once we've kind of internally gotten buy-in, now we can go ahead and take this next step to put again, I said mission, vision, values, and that's sort of where we're at.
Yeah, for us, we said, hey, our vision for this year for our PS team could be about helping standardize the service delivery to help customers launch faster with Rocketlane, and to win customer confidence as trusted partners in achieving their services and onboarding goals. So we need to keep in mind their goals. We need to help them launch faster. We need to help them see this partnership as something that's going to flourish.
Oh, good old ChatGPT. Where would we be without you, right? And so that's where we leaned into our strength on this one. And Sri will actually take it and, again, walk you through the real-world application. But when we went to ChatGPT to go ahead and create the actual charter and see what it came out with, it was pretty basic. which is nice to see, right? Title, purpose, scope, and then those goals and objectives. It's really in line with what we were just going through. Sri, of course, took it one step further and made it real.
No, I think, obviously one way to do it is to ask ChatGPT to flesh it out for you, give the inputs you need. But we chatted about this, and one of the things which Aaron came up with was, like, here are the things that actually need to go into a charter. So you need the mission, objectives, values, key strategies for achieving the vision, all of that to be thought through and documented so that you know, hey, these are the strategies we decided on to accomplish those objectives, to align with the vision and values that we put together. And then you also need to look at the, when are you going to do those initiatives? What are the timelines for it? Are you measuring against them? What are you going to measure to understand if you actually delivered on that charter or not? And, track that progress ongoing and adjust how you're, going about things. If
you can't measure, you can't prove it. And if you can't prove it, I don't believe you, right? And we're always doing that in customer success, quantifying the qualitative. That's what I always say. And same thing here in PS, right? We've got to be able to measure to show the customer the value that we're delivering.
So we actually did come up with a charter of our own. I don't have that up in the slide, but if any of you are interested in looking at what our PS charter looks like, happy to share it over email, sri@rocketlane.com. Reach out to me.
And then get this CFO. You heard this morning the CFO, Sri was talking about the CFO kind of being the biggest voice in the room right now. And in a down economy like we're living in today, that's only going to get louder, right? It's only even more of a vital role. And so it's just that much more important to get their buy-in behind this charter so that we can get that funding. We heard earlier today as well that PS is the most expensive part of a software company. Professional services has the lowest margins. That's another reason why this is so important, because we've got to use that to try to continue to be a cost center, but to rather be a profit generating side of the business. And that's right in line with getting the CFO on board.
We incidentally also have a CFO joining us for a following session. So if you have questions on how to do that right, there is a panel for that.
It's a good segue. He's a pro, you see? He's a pro. All right, then the last two are pretty quick, and that'll leave us with a couple of minutes here to chat with anybody who's done this in the real world. But communicate, evangelize this around your organization. Make sure that everybody internally, you were circling back to close that loop. I don't know if you have anything to add to that one.
Not really. It's just about making sure people internalize it, people agree with it, people have, feel that they contributed to it and collaborated on coming up with it, so they're all aligned on the charter.
I think that's a good point, yeah, having them have a vested interest in it. And then last but not least, just like we've been saying all day, success is a journey. It's never done. Professional services and what we do, never done. Same thing with the charter. We're going to iterate, adapt as we learn over time. And to Sri's point earlier, this is something that's constantly being updated and constantly being revised.
That's pretty much what we had from the session perspective, but maybe we can hear from anyone who's attempted to put together a charter for their team.
Yeah.
What resonated.
We got one there, or questions. I mean, we don't want to put anybody on this hot spot here.
I love the way you laid that out. It was very logical, and I think easy to access. One thing that we've had success with at Drift and using our charter is showing the team how initiatives tie to the charter, so that they know that it's a continuous process, top of mind, and it truly is guiding the business. Is that a best practice? Do you agree with that? We're just kind of winging it, to be honest.
I think makes complete sense.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is OKRs, right? Like tying what I do as an individual contributor back to the overall direction of the company. Same sort of concept there. I don't think there's ever a downside of helping people understand how their box fits into the other boxes to make up the big box, if you will.
I think just the transparency of it as well, in a way, I've heard a couple of people over lunch talk about how pushing people on the team to do time tracking more accurately was hard. But when it ties up into, hey, this is the initiative towards which we're doing that, and this is how this initiative contributes to the organizational goal, that sort of helps put things in perspective, and people can get more serious about the things that are being asked of them.
Anything else? Going once. We've got 2 minutes left if anybody's got something. Okay. While we're waiting, I'll just do a shameless plug for my closing keynote of the virtual conference on Thursday. I'd love for you all to dial in. It's all about revenue. I'm a chief revenue officer, so I'm tying everything that we do in onboarding and professional services back to 5 revenue streams. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Good. So my question has to deal with if you're making a charter for professional services org, how do you kind of meld that with if you have a larger organization and the charter with that?
Yeah, I think that's why the whole thing starts with what is the organization's vision, right? And that's why there is that alignment needed and leadership, blessing or participation needed in confirming that, hey, this will be the charter for our team, and here is why, here's how it's going to impact the rest of the organization, and the goals of and vision of the entire company, right? So it needs to start from the company's goals, the company's vision, and how this ties into that.
And specifically what the company's goals are, again, going back to the customer. Always, hopefully we built our charter as a holistic organization from that customer experience perspective, and then we can back into that from a professional services perspective. How can we continue in that direction, right? Always starting with that customer and then backing out, to Sri's point, not just when you build out products, but when we build our services. What are those outcomes we're helping them achieve, and how can we help them achieve it? What are those desired experiences that they have?
I think this also forces a dialogue with leadership, right? If you're going to get alignment on that charter, you are going to get a dialogue with the CEO, with the CFO, with maybe CCO, others, to ensure that all of you are thinking about it the same way, because ultimately we all know we're working towards better customer outcomes. We're working towards betterment of the company, but still what's high priority today for the company may be different from what it was a few months ago. And when you have that dialogue and that interlock happen around finalizing this charter, it helps you have the more current version of what's important for the company today.
With that, we are out of time. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Sri, for a chance to hang out with you, buddy.